Hi, welcome to another episode of Becoming Constitutional, a podcast devoted to exploring the thought of Orestes Brownson. Some years ago, I was in Toastmasters, and I made the statement there are two types of people in the world. And of course, people say this, and you think they're going to say something stupid or they're going to tell a joke or something like that. But there really are two types of people in the world. Those who believe that before the creation of the universe there was absolutely nothing, and those who think that there was never any time when the universe did not exist. In other words, the latter are pantheists, which is basically a form of atheism. Orestes Brownson was a pantheist in the sense that he felt that the world had always existed. And at one point in his life, when he was about 37, 38, he realized that God is free and that he had created the universe from nothing. This changed his attitude, his viewpoint entirely, because it's a 180-degree difference. Earlier, he had made another conversion, which he calls his political conversion. Brownson spent his entire life striving to elevate humanity through education and economic reform. In his early manhood, he strove for a society that really lived up to the principle that all men are created equal. In the 1830s in America, the land of liberty, he felt it was extremely unfair that factory owners became rich and were admired, whereas factory workers were impoverished and disdained. For the first 37 years of his life, his concept of liberty was individualistic and anarchistic, sort of like Kamala Harris, unburdened by things that have been. Since the churches had failed to instill gospel values into society, this divine task had to be taken up by the government as the agent of we the people, vox populo, vox Deo. To achieve his aim of economic equality, Brownson plotted a takeover of the Democratic Party by his radical friends, very much like the recent equality tour of Bernie Sanders and AOC, except that Brownson didn't have any money. Like all fortunate progressives, he was bludgeoned by reality. The election of 1840 saw the defeat of the Democratic candidate, Martin Van Buren, as Brownson puts it,
by doggerels, log cabins, and hard cider, by means utterly corrupt and corrupting, which disgusted me with democracy as distinguished from constitutional republicanism, destroyed what little confidence I had in popular elections, and made me distrust both the intelligence and the instincts of the masses.
Rather than sulk over his misfortune, Brownson, ever seeking the truth, sat down and read everything he could about government, its origin, its form, and its administration.
I read for the first time Aristotle on politics. I read the best treatises, ancient and modern, on government within my reach. I studied the constitutions of Greece and Rome, and their history, the political administration of ancient Persia, the feudal system, and the constitutions of modern states.
He discovered that society fills a need in man. Society is part of the natural order. Further, every society, from the family on up, requires some form of authority, some form of government to create the rules and to maintain the guardrails. Government's role is more lofty than just keeping the peace, keeping us from slitting each other's throats. It has a positive aspect.
It is needed to render effective the solidarity of the individuals of a nation and to render the nation an organism, not a mere organization. It is necessary to build community, to be a social providence, imitating in its order and degree the action of the divine providence itself, and while it provides for the common good of all, to protect each, the lowest and meanest, with the whole force and majesty of society. Its nature is beneficent, and its action defines and protects the right of property, creates and maintains a medium in which religion can exert her supernatural energy, promotes learning, fosters science and art, advances civilization, and contributes as a powerful means to the fulfillment by man of the divine purpose of his existence. Next, after religion, it is man's greatest good, and even religion without it can do only a small portion of her work.
So a strong, firm, and efficient government is necessary to maintain order in the state and justice between men. Liberty is not in the absence of authority, but in being held to obey only just and legitimate authority. These reflections had led him far from his starting point. As he puts it,
Evidently, I had changed systems and had entered another order of ideas. Government was no longer the mere agent of society, as my democratic masters had taught me, but an authority having the right and the power to govern society, and direct and aid it as a wise providence in fulfilling its destiny.
he regarded this change in systems so important that he dedicated the first half of the American Republic to explain the origin, the form, and the administration of government.
I became henceforth a conservative in politics, instead of an impracticable radical, and through political conservatism, I advanced rapidly towards religious conservatism.
These two conversions, political and religious, were his foundation for analyzing the American spirit as reflected in the U.S. Constitution. And so in 1870, he was able to write,
I cannot conceive a more profoundly philosophic or more admirably devised constitution than that of our own government.
So you might ask, what system am I in? Is government merely a hindrance to my personal freedom? Or is it something that arises naturally out of human existence, accompanying us in our journey toward our ultimate purpose, which is to be happy with God in heaven? So that's something to think about until our next episode. We'll see you then. You have been listening to another episode of Becoming Constitutional, a podcast dedicated to exploring the thought of Orestes Brownson.